Welcome to the Alex Salmond Show. We have another great show lined up for you today. This time it's a mixture of politics and sport. I've been talking to the living legend, the man they call the Flying Scotsman, Sir Jackie Stewart, a Grand Prix world champion 3 times over and still one of the most famous sportsmen on the planet. Yet Jackie can't recite the alphabet due to his chronic dyslexia. We spoke about his fabulous career, his campaign on dyslexia, and his latest cause, the struggle against dementia. Plus, joining me in the studio to state his case will be Downing Street's greatest ever spin doctor, Alistair Campbell. Brexiteers beware, he has you in his sights. And we'll be hearing from Tasmin Ahmed Sheikh, telling us why the Arctic is the new centre of the world. But first, let's hear from you. The show has received a mini mountain of tweets and messages and emails. Let's have a look at some of them. Well, first from Peter Joseph. I personally wouldn't have known about Alex's show had it not been for the UK media, so I'd like to add my thanks. And so say all of us, Peter. So say all of us. Bunko Boy says, Alec, why are you not the First Minister of Scotland? Because I resigned, Bunko Boy. I've always followed the Harold Wilson adage. It's better to leave when they're asking why you're going, not when they're asking why you're still there. Theresa May should have a think about that. As Zinad said, I'm expecting Alec and Tasmina to be taken off air after having LGBT so prominent on an RT show. Well, according to the UK media, that's what happens. Well, we'll just see, Zinad, won't we? But this is the Alex Salmond Show, and we decide on the content. Robert Leslie, 69, says, is it true that Kes Dugdale is going on the Alex Salmond Show to talk about her decision to go on I'm a Celebrity? This is Kezia Dugdale, the former Labour leader in Scotland. She's going into the jungle. That's a great rumour, Robert. Let's just say it's true that it's a rumour. And it's Suicider Free says, Carles Puigdemont, the in-depth interview in the Alex Salmond Show. Why haven't the mainstream media not done this before? Where was BBC News, ITV News, or Channel 4 News? Was it deemed not to be newsworthy? Well, Suicider, I thought the interesting thing about the interview with Carles Puigdemont, it was that he was allowed the opportunity in English, his 4th language, to explain his case in a way that I haven't seen on any other media outlet. I thought that was the point. But not everybody agrees. We have Nigel, who's emailed in from Andalusia. And Nigel says, the question is, do the Catalan separatists have the right to seize independence, driving a coach and horses through normal parliamentary procedures, or conversely, does Spain have the right to defend its constitution? The answer to the first is no, and I suggest to the second is yes. Well, Nigel, it wasn't whether Spain had the right to defend its constitution that interested me. It was the manner in which they were doing it. And if Prime Minister Rajoy wants to take up the offer to defend that position in the chair in the Alex Salmond Show, then I'll be delighted to accommodate him. This week I caught up with the Flying Scotsman, Sir Jackie Stewart, in Geneva, where we discussed his glittering career, his global activism on dyslexia, and his current campaign, the race against dementia. Sir Jackie Stewart, first I want to take you back to your boyhood in Dunbarton. You're having a rough time at school, you're a bit of a wild child. How close were you to your life going off the rails before you found anything you were successful at?
Well, it's more, Alex, a feeling of complete loss of my own abilities, because at school I was a severe dyslexic. I didn't know that then. I just thought I was dumb, stupid and thick, because that's what the teacher was telling me. And that was a class of 53 people. And when you left the primary school to go to the playground, the clever folk were up here and the dummies were back there, and I was one of those 3 or 4 or 5 dummies. And the feeling of insecurity in myself, or the inferiority against all my other school friends so far in my life, was so humiliating. I mean, I couldn't get out of school fast enough.
And your first success wasn't in motor racing, it was in clay pigeon shooting.
Shooting saved my life in the sense of self-esteem, because I was so completely deflated by my inabilities of not being able to read or write or do the things that other folk could do so easily. And I mean, I never went to any church evenings or anything, because I'd be frightened I would have been made feel inferior to everybody else. I was completely left out.
So eventually people said to you, well done, Jackie Stewart, you've won these competitions, you're a great clay pigeon shooter, but how did you then transfer from clay pigeon shooting to motor racing to Formula One?
Motor racing came as a complete surprise. It was a rich young man in Glasgow whose family foundation would not allow him to race, which is not unusual in very rich families. And I was the mechanic preparing the cars for other folk to drive. And as a wee reward, he said, you do one wee race or wee event, which I did. And I finished second. A complete surprise to me. I was amazed. And he said, well, you better have another one. And I won the next one. And at that point, it was almost a sort of rocket ship, took off. When I won the Monaco Grand Prix, I'd never been abroad in my life before. You know, I had done it shooting, but never racing. And if you won the Monaco Grand Prix at that time, the Monday night there was a big gallop, black tie, and you sat next to the Princess Grace. And Graham Hill had won the Formula One race, and he was on the other side of Princess Grace. And for Helen and I to be in that company and these things in those days was like...
You went on to 27 Grand Prix Formula One wins, 3 World Championships, glittering success. But of course, you were known for your lightning starts in the Grand Prix, but that wasn't all about your lightning reactions, was it, Jackie?
Well, you're talking about the Monaco Grand Prix. There was a great man called Louis Chiron, a French racing driver. When Louis Chiron got the flag up, it was in itself quite an effort. But when he had to bring it down from back here, he couldn't bring it with his arms. He had to do it with his legs as well. And I learned and was watching him. And as soon as his knees bent to bring the flag down, I was off, because there's no way he could have stopped the flag going down. And of course, I won the Monaco Grand Prix 2 or 3 or 4 times.
So you were watching his knees while the rest were watching the flag?
Everybody was waiting for the start. I was looking at his knees.
Can I come on to the 3 great campaigns that you've been associated with? I mean, firstly, the campaign on safety in the sport. And now, looking at that now, people say that's a great thing to make the sport safer, but it didn't make you particularly popular, did it?
That did not make me popular, but it's maybe the most important thing I've done in my life. I think if we hadn't done it, there was a good chance that Formula One Grand Prix racing could have come to an end, because I think the insurance companies would have finished it in the end, because sooner or later we were going to have a car go into the crowd.
Your second great campaign, one which is still very much ongoing, is on dyslexia. But you yourself weren't diagnosed or recognised with that condition till long after you retired from motor racing.
It was because both my sons went to a very expensive school, and within 4 weeks of being there, the headmaster called me and said, you've got to take your 2 boys out of there. They can't keep up with the rest of the school, and we can't handle that. I said, don't be ridiculous. This is the second most expensive school in the world. I've paid a lot of money for it. And they said, well, in that case, you've got to get them assessed. I took Mark, to begin with, to London, and he was assessed with dyslexia. And I said, I don't know what dyslexia is, but he'll do okay. I mean, I can't read or write very well. The guy said, have you got a minute? He took me in. 10 minutes later, I was 43 years of age. I was told I was a dyslexic. It was as if I had been saved from drowning.
I mean, normally when people are diagnosed with a serious condition, and then it's a dreadful moment, but for you, being diagnosed with dyslexia was a revelation, which explained a great deal.
It was, but what it did do was allow me to get onto a platform about it, because I had been so disadvantaged myself by the educational authorities, and you were part of that. Jack McConnell started it, you came in, and now Nicola's been involved. And in Scotland, we've probably got the best package, far above England and most other countries. Now, we now know that there is something called dyslexia. And if you treat people the right way, Muhammad Ali was dyslexia. He was a dyslexic, but so also was Einstein, so also was Leonardo da Vinci, so also was Churchill, so also were all sorts of famous and successful people in the world, because they think out the box. Branson's dyslexic. What a business structure he's created. In my little world, I can't read or write to this day. I can't do a letter by hand. I just can't spell.
But Jackie, I've had lots of letters from you. So you don't dictate all your correspondence now?
Everything's dictated. Everything's dictated, and it's read back to me. I can't read it back. So it's a terrible disability still.
And you think that the secret of the way to tackle this is basically in the classroom, so that teachers are aware
Yes.
and are able to identify the condition?
But it was you, Alex Salmond, that I phoned up and said, listen, it's been a disaster. And we did sit down with your Minister of Education at that time and with the CEO of Dyslexia Scotland, and we got them to agree that every teacher training college in Scotland compulsorily had to teach every new teacher at least the signs of early recognition of a child with a learning disability.
You had huge success in your campaign on safety in Grand Prix racing. You've had some success in awareness of dyslexia, much more still to be done, but some success. Now you've taken on perhaps the biggest battle of all, the race against dementia. Tell me why that's become one of your personal priorities.
About 4 years ago, Helen went to the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota, in the United States, and got identified as having dementia. Dementia has no cure currently and has no preventive medicine to stop people from having dementia. Helen's short-term memory now is very weak. Sometimes she doesn't know whether she's in Switzerland or England. It's a terrible disease for many people. What a terrible cost it is to a family to see one of their own not being able to be cared for because there's no money left in the kitty for them to be looked after. Helen's looked after by 2 neuro nurses. It costs a huge amount of money. Alex, I can afford that, but very few other people can. So we've got to change that. You've got to find a new way of doing business. I'm trying to introduce Harvard and the Mayo Clinic to doing a joint venture with Race Against Dementia. They're 2 of the best places in the world that I can find. If I can get them to work together, and then I can find the money from all the other people that I'm capable of reaching out for, and it's going to cost millions, that I believe can be done. But we've got to do it a different way than it's been currently going on for the last 20 years.
So you're in the grid of this race against dementia. Do you think you can win this?
With the right people behind me, yes.
Well, let's hope so, Sir Jackie. That would be wonderful. Now, for appearing on the Alex Salmond Show, there's something very special you get. That is a quaich, which, as you're well aware, is Gaelic for a cup of kindness. You have to supply your own whiskey, Jackie.
That's pretty tight, Alex.
But you're getting the quaich.
Well, thank you very much. It'll be kept in the right place in the wee house of Scotland in Jackie's house.
Sir Jackie Stewart, thank you so much.
Thank you, Alex.
These are great campaigns from Sir Jackie Stewart on dyslexia and now dementia. Coming up after the break, we'll be hearing from Tasmina, and Alistair Campbell will be stating his case as to why Brexit must be binned. See you soon. Welcome back. Last Sunday, an Arctic Circle forum entitled Scotland and the New North was held in Edinburgh. It was hosted by the Scottish Government with speakers including the First Minister of Scotland, the former President of Iceland, representatives from the Faroe Islands, Greenland and the European Commission. Let's hear more about it from Tasmina.
This week's Arctic Circle Forum in Edinburgh included decision makers from governments, organisations, universities and many other stakeholders interested in the development of the Arctic and its consequences for the future of the globe. The event was hosted by the Scottish Government.
Given some of the sheer challenges we face, tackling climate change, attracting tourism, some of the transportation issues that affect Arctic countries and their closest neighbours. Scotland is not an Arctic country, but we are very close to the Arctic geographically, and given these sheer challenges, it's really important that we work together collaboratively on them.
Scotland, with its great traditions of political thinking and expertise and economic engagement, can play a great role in helping all of us to map out the framework for cooperation.
Tasmina is with me now. Tas, Scotland in geographical terms isn't strictly speaking an Arctic country, but the Nordic countries, the Baltic countries, are near neighbours, they are. So are these forum a means of cooperation across a range of issues?
Undoubtedly, that's one of the reasons for having them. And of course, recently we've seen the Scottish Government take initiative from Finland, who had the policy idea of a baby box, and that's now been rolled out across Scotland. And you know, families of newborns receive a lovely box which acts as a cot and will hopefully prevent against cot death. But it also contains a number of items that, you know, for the baby and for mums particularly, that they can enjoy after the birth of their little one. And hopefully that's an example of how we can take good ideas from our neighbours and roll them out in our countries to create a better, safer, hopefully more equal society for everyone to enjoy.
Tasmeen Ahmed Sheikh, thank you very much. 20 years ago, this man made the political weather in the United Kingdom. Now he's back and ready for another fight. Welcome, Alistair Campbell. Let's hear you state your case.
Have you noticed how the Brextremists no longer even argue that Brexit is going to be great for Britain, just that we voted for it and so we have to do it? Well, democracy is a process, not a moment. A country is entitled to change its mind, and I believe Britain is doing so as the costs and chaos of Brexit mount, as the incompetence of the charlatans around Mrs May is exposed, and as the big questions remain unanswered. How I long for Mrs May to stand up and make a speech like this. I voted Remain, but on becoming Prime Minister, I felt duty-bound to deliver the result, to leave. I have tried. But having looked at it every which way, I've concluded it cannot be done without massive damage to our economy, our public services and our standing in the world. So I am revoking Article 50 and asking the country finally to have the debate we failed to have in the referendum. And how about Jeremy Corbyn, who says he believes in following the views of Labour members, actually doing so on Brexit, admitting that if it goes ahead, the chances of his implementing his manifesto promises are zero because the economy will not be up to the task. Saying too, what's becoming clearer by the day, that hard Brexit is a policy of the hard right, for the hard right, by the hard right, who, helped by Mr Putin in Russia and by the lying media oligarchs here, successfully harnessed anger at injustice and inequality and falsely presented themselves as the people to put that right. So come on, Theresa, do what you know is right. Stop the madness. And Jeremy, if you want to be Prime Minister, show real leadership on this and you might just make it. And for all who, like me, think Brexit is a disaster for our kids' future, keep fighting. It is your democratic right and duty.
Well, that's powerful stuff, but Alistair, can Brexit really be reversed?
I think that eventually, as we've had a referendum, it probably has to be another referendum at the end of it at some point. But I just think we're in such chaos. I just feel that this is such a mess that something has to give. If it doesn't, I think the political system is failing.
You're one of the leaders of the Stop Brexit campaign, but isn't your past association with, as a progenitor of New Labour, is that not an impediment to you reaching out to the current Labour leadership?
Well, it might be, and it's like when Tony Blair comes out and there's lots of sort of shoot the messenger. But I think if you believe something, and I often quote, you and Nicola by saying that you have not given up on the idea of Scottish independence because you lost a referendum. I have not started to agree with Farage and Johnson and Gove because we lost the referendum. I actually think, as a father of 3 kids in their 20s, that if this goes ahead as planned, we are ruining our country.
Now, you and I both know that politics is not just about numbers, it's about psychology.
Yeah.
This moment over the last week where the government are struggling to stamp the date of leaving on the face of their Brexit bill, do you think that's an important psychological moment in your campaign?
I do feel that the ground is shifting. They've given up saying this is going to be great. Their only argument is, we voted for it, we have to make it happen. Do people think the government is handling it well or badly? Nobody thinks the government's handling it well. So we're, as a country, having voted for this, the country is now, I think, getting really concerned at the idea that we're putting our future in the hands of these people. I have never seen a more incompetent government, frankly, anywhere in the world, anywhere in Europe, as this one. Theresa May, who's a prisoner of the right, Boris Johnson, who's a proven liar, Michael Gove, who's just all about I don't know what, Liam Fox wandering around the world on his planes making zero progress on trade, David Davis, who You can tell when David Davis is not confident because he laughs more.
Now, you've been very hard on Boris Johnson and indeed the rest of the cabinet, and I should just say they could be in this chair being hard on you if they wish.
Theresa May, she, in my view, is now the tail is wagging the dog. The right wing of her party is driving her. In Labour, Jeremy Corbyn seems to me to just have given up talking about Brexit. Every event I do now, I start by saying, 4 questions. Are you optimistic or pessimistic about Trump being president? And it's 95 to 100 pessimism. Are you optimistic or pessimistic about Brexit? And I'll tell you what, every audience, I've yet to get any audience of any sort above about 10, 15%, and most are nowhere near that. Do you think Theresa May will be Prime Minister at the next election? And do you have any confidence in Theresa May? It's close to 0. Do you think Jeremy Corbyn will win the next election? It's never above 10%.
In your case, you said that Russia and the media in the UK were cheering on a hard Brexit. But do you think these forces were responsible for the Brexit vote?
I think that Parliament does need to look at that in the way that the American system is looking at Trump's relationship with Russia in his campaign, because there is definitely something has gone on. And I also think that Theresa May is worried about what that might find. So I do hope that goes further. But I think that the role of the media, I mean, honestly, if you pick up the extremist lie machine newspapers, the Mail, the Sun, the Express, the Telegraph, you would think this thing is going absolutely brilliantly and it's all going well, we're going to get everything we want, and it's a nonsense.
Well, famously, you once got the Sun on side New Labour. Can you work that trick again?
I don't think so. I think we've gone beyond. In fact, one of the arguments I used to have with Tony after that is I think that having got into power, I don't think we did enough to, if you like, to curb the excesses of our media. The Mail, those papers on Brexit, they're just an arm of propaganda, nothing else. This idea that democracy and the will of the people, that it stopped on June the 23rd, 2016. That was the will of the people, and it will never change. Well, it will change, and I think it is changing.
I may have used that argument about Scottish independence.
I'm sure you have.
But let's say, for the sake of argument, that you don't win this fight. What do you think the implications are for the Remain nations of these islands? I mean, firstly, for Ireland.
Oh, I was doing RTE radio this morning. I mean, the extent to which Ireland has not even didn't figure in the referendum campaign despite people trying, barely figures in anything that the government says and cares about this. And, you know, one of the things I'm proudest of in terms of the work that Tony Blair did as Prime Minister was the Good Friday Agreement and the peace process. They're putting it at risk. They are putting it at risk. The building the coalition with the DUP, in my view, puts it at risk. So I think the economic and political risks for Ireland are massive. I think for Scotland, I've been surprised actually by 2 things. I've been surprised that the SNP is not more active on this, because I think Scots, despite the fact that some of your voters were Brexiteers, I think actually Scotland does feel that this is the wrong thing for Scotland and the wrong thing for the UK. So I'd like to see the SNP government much more active on this. But I think for the whole of the UK, this is us, in my view, opting for our own decline.
Many people watching this programme will have voted for Brexit. So what's your message to them?
That they're entitled to change their mind if they think that actually what they thought they were voting for is not being delivered. They were told it was going to be easy. They were told that these trade deals were going to come without any problem. They were told we're going to stay in the single market and the customs union. They were told we're going to get millions and millions and millions and more for the health service. I was speaking at a meeting the other day up near where I live in North London. A doctor from the UCH, University College Hospital, stood up and he said something which I thought was really important. He said, I am seeing the impact of a combination of austerity and the impact on the economy of the fall in the pound. I'm seeing its impact on healthcare. And he said, the people need to understand you can have the NHS or you can have Brexit. You're not going to have both. And of course, the hard right who are pushing this Brexit, they want that. They want a low tax, low regulation, offshore Britain.
And finally, Alistair, can your case win through?
I hope so. I think it's going to be very, very difficult. It's very difficult when you've got the government and the opposition party basically saying, well, the people voted, this has to happen. But I think there is enough. People have to stay angry about this. I've never seen such a shambles. It cannot, if this happens and if it goes ahead and if Parliament lets it go ahead as it's being presented at the moment, we are a country voting for our own decline, and it's the biggest tragedy in our history.
Alistair, for stating your case,
What do I get?
you get a Quake.
Oh, look.
Now, Iron Brew in the Quake. Oh, there are other soft drinks that are available.
I know.
But thank you so much.
I love the fact, Iron Brew, is it right that Scotland is the only country in the world where Coca-Cola is not the best-selling soft drink?
Well, Iron Brew certainly say that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Alistair
you.
Campbell.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Strong stuff from the Campbell, with particularly searing criticism of the Brexit cabinet, with Boris Johnson getting it in the neck. A right of reply is open to any cabinet member who feels put down. However, the government's mounting problems with Brexit are difficult to deny, and at the heart of them is the disastrous decision to invoke Article 50 last March without first securing agreement on a transition period. This placed the UK negotiating team in an impossible position, entering a time-limited negotiation with every single card in the hand of Monsieur Barnier and his colleagues representing the EU 27. Now, David Davis is taking a lot of stick, but I think that Archangel Gabriel would have trouble making a fist of this particular hand. The UK is facing total humiliation, abject humiliation, or if we are very lucky, perhaps just a humiliation. So what is to be done? Two choices. Either set the target as an EFTA-type deal, that is a Norwegian-type arrangement for the UK. It does mean freedom of movement, but it protects the economic benefits of the single market and would still allow other trade deals to be done. The second would be to take the notification of Article 50, tear it up, and start again. In 2 weeks' time, we'll have a prominent Brexiteer stating their case as to why Brexit must prevail. The next Thursday, we turn full tartan and head to Scotland for a St Andrew's Day special. So from Taz, the team, and myself, goodbye for now.